The call came in at 3:47 in the morning, and the woman on the other end was calm and clear and gave me her address and said someone was in her house. I dispatched the unit. I stayed on the line, and then she said, "Thank you for trying. But you should know the last time you talked me through this. I died anyway. You told me to hide in the closet. That's where he found me. I checked the system while she was still breathing in my ear, and her call history showed she had dialed 911 4 times that winter, each call logged, each call ending the same way. And the date of death on her file was 11 days before the call I was on right now. Let me back up, because if I just keep going, you'll think I'm the one who's broken, and maybe I am, but I want you to understand it the way it actually happened. In order. The way it slowly took the floor out from under me one piece at a time. I took the graveyard shift at County Dispatch because I couldn't sleep anymore anyway. That's the honest reason. There's a polished version I gave in the interview wanting to help people good under pressure. All of that, and it's not untrue. But the real reason was that nighttime in my apartment had become unbearable, and at least at the call center the silence was full of other people's emergencies instead of my own. I should tell you about the silence I was running from. 8 months before that winter, my younger sister Maddie called me at 2 in the morning. I was asleep. I saw her name on the screen, and I was tired, and we'd been fighting, and I told myself I'd call her back in the morning. I let it ring out. She left no voicemail. In the morning, I had 9 missed calls from her, all between 2 and 3 a.m., and by then, she was gone. They found her car off the river road. The official finding was that she'd lost control on the ice. I have never believed it, because when I finally listened not to a voicemail, there wasn't one. But to the silence of those 9 missed calls stacked up on my phone, I understood that my sister had been trying to reach me for an hour while I slept, and I had decided she could wait. So when people ask why a person would willingly answer emergency calls all night long, that's the answer. I was trying to be the one who picks up. I was trying to undo something that can't be undone, one stranger at a time. Every call I answered, some part of me was answering Maddie. You need to understand that to understand the rest. The center was small county, not city, a rural service area covering a few thousand square miles of farmland and forest, and a handful of dying towns. On the graveyard shift, it was usually just me and one other dispatcher named Gloria, who'd been there 22 years and had a thermos of coffee that never seemed to empty and a way of looking at the phones. Sometimes, like she expected them to do something other than ring. Most nights were quiet. Drunk drivers, a heart attack, a domestic, a kid who'd wandered off. You learn to ride the calm stretches and brace for the bad ones. The first call from the woman came in on a Tuesday in early December. 3:47 a.m., the number showed as a landline registered to a rural address out on Cedar Hollow Road, a part of the county I knew was mostly empty old farms, long driveways, neighbors a quarter-mile apart. The voice was a woman's, middle-aged, steady. She said her name was Eleanor. She said there was a man in her house, downstairs, and she'd locked herself in the upstairs bathroom. I did everything right. I confirmed the address, dispatched the nearest unit, which was 18 minutes out, because that's rural service for you and I, kept her on the line. I kept my voice low and warm. I told her help was coming. I asked her to describe what she could hear. She said footsteps on the stairs. She said he was taking his time. She said, very quietly, "He always takes his time. Always." I noticed the word and filed it away and didn't ask. Because you don't interrogate a terrified person, you keep them calm. The footsteps reached the top of the stairs. Eleanor went silent, and then the line did something I'd never heard a line do. It didn't drop, didn't click. It just sort of thinned out, the way a voice thins out underwater, and the last thing I heard before it went dead was Eleanor saying, almost gently, "It's all right. We've done this before." The unit arrived 20 minutes later. The house on Cedar Hollow Road was dark and locked. No sign of forced entry. No sign of anyone inside. The officers walked the property and reported it clear. Just an empty farmhouse on a cold night. I told myself she'd gotten out. I told myself 100 things. I went home at the end of my shift and I didn't sleep, but that was nothing new. She called again the next night. Same time. 3:47. Same voice. Same address. There's a man in my house. Calm. Clear. Like the first call had never happened. I said, "Eleanor? Eleanor, we spoke last night." And she said, with no recognition at all, "I'm sorry, I don't think so. Please, he's downstairs. I've locked myself in the bathroom." The exact same words. The exact same situation. I dispatched the unit. I kept her talking. And it played out exactly the same: the footsteps, the climb, the thinning of the line, the gentle goodbye. The unit found the house empty again. After my shift, I pulled the records. Both calls were in the system, logged, time-stamped, the audio files sitting there in the archive. I listened to them back to back. They weren't similar. They were identical. Not just the words, the breaths between the words, the exact catch in her voice on "he's downstairs," the precise length of every pause. It was the same call, the same recording. Playing twice, one night apart, live with me responding differently each time, and her never once reacting to anything I said that deviated from the script. I went to Gloria. I told her about the calls from Cedar Hollow Road, about Eleanor. And Gloria, who had not reacted to anything in 22 years, set down her coffee very carefully and looked at me with an expression I can only describe as pity. "How many times has she called?" Gloria asked. "Twice." Gloria nodded slowly. "She'll call more. They come in 4s usually. Sometimes I get them. Not for a few years now." She picked her coffee back up. "Don't pull the address again. Don't dispatch on the 4th one. Just let her talk, and let her go." I asked her what she meant. I asked her who Eleanor was, and Gloria said the thing that turned the whole winter into something else. Eleanor Vance died in that house on Cedar Hollow Road. A man broke in and killed her. That was 19 years ago. She looked at the phones. She called us that night. Whoever was working the board talked her through it, told her to hide, and she did everything she was told, and she died anyway because the unit was too far out. 19 minutes. Gloria's jaw tightened. "She's been calling back ever since. Every few years in the winter, around the anniversary. Same 4 nights. And there's nothing on God's earth any of us can do, because it already happened. You can't dispatch into the past." I want to tell you I dismiss this. A rational person dismisses this. But I'd heard the calls. I'd heard them be identical. And I had spent 8 months unable to forgive myself for not picking up a phone, and now here was a phone that picked up the past every night and let me try, and fail, and try again. So, I didn't take Gloria's advice. Of course I didn't. The 3rd call came the next night, 3:47. And this time, I tried something. While Eleanor recited her script to the man downstairs, the bathroom, the footsteps, I stopped trying to follow the old call. I stopped saying what the original dispatcher must have said 19 years ago. Instead, I said her full name. "Eleanor Vance. Listen to me. Don't hide in the bathroom. The bathroom is where he finds you. Go out the upstairs window onto the porch roof. Right now. Do you hear me?" And Eleanor stopped. For the first time, the script broke. There was a silence on the line that was not in the recording. And then, in a voice that was suddenly less calm, suddenly confused, suddenly present, she said, "The window?" My heart was slamming. "Yes, the window. Go now." "How do you know my name?" she whispered. "Nobody asks my name. Every time nobody asks my name." And then, with a dawning horror that I felt in my own chest, "How many times have I done this?" I didn't know what to say. The truth was monstrous. So I just said, "Go to the window, Eleanor. Please. Let me get it right this time." I heard her move. I heard a window scrape open, a sound that had never been on any version of the call. And for one impossible second, I thought I'd done it. I thought I'd reached back 19 years and changed it. Then the line thinned out, and underwater, far away, I heard her start to scream, and the screaming was new too. And it was worse than the gentle goodbyes, so much worse, and the call dropped. I sat there shaking. Gloria was watching me from across the room. She'd heard my half of it. She came over and crouched by my chair and said, very quietly, the second thing that changed everything. You're not supposed to talk back to them. You're supposed to let it play. When you talk back, when you change it. She stopped. The board has rules nobody wrote down. The old supervisor told me when I started, you let the dead replay it, and you let them go, and they rest a little while. But if you interfere, if you make it new, she looked at the phone like it might be listening. Then it isn't a replay anymore. Then it's happening. Then you've pulled her into now, and whatever was chasing her comes with. I asked what she meant. She didn't answer. She just told me that there was always a fourth call, and that I should not be the one to take it, and that if I had any sense I'd call in sick the next night and let her sit the board alone. I didn't call in sick. I want to be honest about why. It wasn't bravery. It was the opposite. It was that I had spent 8 months desperate for one more chance to pick up a phone and save someone I'd failed, and the universe had handed me exactly that, 4 nights running, and I could not make myself walk away from it, even though every instinct screamed that I should. The 4th night, I made a mistake that I will carry for the rest of my life. I decided that if I was going to break the rules, I'd break them all the way. Before my shift, I went deep into the cold case records the county kept on an old terminal in the back, looking for everything about Eleanor Vance's death. I wanted to know the man's name. I wanted to know how she actually died, every detail, so that this time I could talk her around it perfectly. And that's where the floor dropped to the next level down. The file on Eleanor Vance's murder was there, 19 years old. And clipped to it, cross-referenced, was the dispatch record from the night she died. The audio, the transcript, the name of the dispatcher who had been working the board that night, who had talked her through it, who had told her to hide in the bathroom where the man found her. The dispatcher's name was Margaret Vance, Eleanor's sister. My stomach turned to ice as I read it. 19 years ago, Eleanor Vance had called 911 with a man in her house, and the call had been answered by random, terrible chance, or maybe not by chance at all, by her own sister, who worked the county graveyard shift. Margaret had recognized Eleanor's voice and address instantly. Margaret had stayed on the line. Margaret had told her sister to hide in the bathroom. And Margaret had listened, helpless, 18 minutes from the nearest unit, while her sister was murdered in real time in her ear. Margaret Vance had quit dispatch the following week, and the file noted in a cold administrative line, had died by her own hand the following spring. I understood then why the calls came to our board, to the graveyard shift, why they sought out whoever was sitting where Margaret had sat. Eleanor wasn't just replaying her death. She was calling for her sister. She had been calling for her sister for 19 years. Nobody asks my name, she'd said. Because every dispatcher who'd taken the call since had treated her like a stranger, had let the script play and let her go, the way Gloria told them to. None of them had been the one she was reaching for. None of them had been the sister who picked up. And I, who had failed my own sister, who had let Maddie's calls ring out into the dark eye, had been the first person in 19 years to say Eleanor's name, to talk back, to try to change it, to answer her the way a sister would. I had told myself I was saving a stranger. I was doing something else. I was answering Maddie. I was sitting in Margaret's chair, drowning in the same guilt Margaret had drowned in, reaching back through a dead phone line to pick up a call I'd let ring out 8 months ago. And the dead woman on the other end had felt it, had felt someone finally reach back for her with a sister's grief, and she had latched on. The 4th call came at 3:47. But it was different from the first word. "Margaret?" Eleanor said. Not calm, not scripted. Raw and hoping and 19 years exhausted. "Margaret, is that you? You came back. I knew you'd come back. I've been calling and calling. I should have hung up." Gloria had stood, was crossing the room toward me fast, was saying, don't answer her. Don't be Margaret. But I had 8 months of unanswered calls sitting in my chest like a stone, and a dead woman was saying she'd known someone would come back for her. And God help me, I could not let another call ring out. I said, I'm here this time. I'm not going to let it ring. And the line did not thin out. For the first time in 4 nights, the line got clearer, closer. The static fell away and Eleanor's voice came through warm and real and right beside my ear, no longer underwater, no longer 19 years away, and she said, Thank God you picked up. Now stay on the line with me, Margaret. Stay with me this time. He's coming up the stairs, and this time you're close enough to hear how it ends. The lights in the call center dimmed not off, just down, the way they do when something pulls too much current. Gloria grabbed my shoulder. On the screen, the call's origin data was changing in real time, the address scrolling, no longer Cedar Hollow Road, updating, localizing, and I watched in horror as the system tried to pin the call's location and landed, finally, on the address of the building I was sitting in. The call was coming from inside the center. I heard footsteps, not on the line. Behind me. Slow, taking their time. The way Eleanor had described 19 years of nights, he always takes his time crossing the empty call center floor toward my chair. And Eleanor's voice in my ear was crying now, but not from fear, from relief. You stayed, she wept. You finally stayed with me. Now you'll know exactly what it was like. Now you'll never have to wonder again. I understand it now, the thing Gloria tried to warn me about. When you let the dead replay, they replay their death, and then they rest. But I hadn't let Eleanor replay her death. I'd answered as her sister, and reached for her with a sister's love, and what Eleanor wanted, what she had wanted for 19 years, was not to be saved. It was too late to be saved. What she wanted was for her sister to not let go, to stay on the line all the way to the end, to not be alone in it. And she had finally, after 19 years, found someone willing to stay. The footsteps stopped directly behind my chair. I did not turn around. Gloria was screaming something. The lights were almost gone. And Eleanor whispered, gentle again the way she'd been on the very first night, Don't worry, it only hurts for 19 minutes. Then you can start calling too. I don't fully remember what happened next. The lights came back. The call had dropped. The center was empty, just me and Gloria, who was white as paper and would not speak for the rest of the shift. The address data on the screen was back to normal. Eleanor Vance did not call again that winter. The 4 nights were done. I quit 2 days later. I couldn't sit that bored. I couldn't look at 3:47 on a clock. I moved out of the county, took a job that has nothing to do with phones, and for a while I let myself believe it was over, that I'd been pulled to the edge of something and stepped back in time. But I need to tell you the last part, the part I've never said out loud. 8 months before all of this, before Eleanor, before the graveyard shift, my sister Maddie called me 9 times between 2 and 3 in the morning, and I let every one of them ring out. And then she died on the river road, and they said it was the ice. Last week, on the anniversary of Maddie's death, my phone rang at 2:00 in the morning. I was asleep. I almost let it ring out, the way I always do, the way I will be punishing myself for until I die. But I'd learned something on that graveyard shift. I'd learned what it costs to let a call go. So this time I picked up. It was Maddie's number. Maddie's number that's been disconnected for over a year. And my sister's voice, young and scared and exactly as I remembered it, said, You finally picked up. I've been calling and calling. Stay on the line with me this time, okay? Stay with me. I'm on the river road, and the car's going onto the ice, and this time you're close enough to hear how it ends. I should have learned, Gloria told me. Don't talk back to the dead. Don't reach for them. Don't make it new. But she's my sister. And the call is still connected, and the ice is cracking, and I am not going to hang up, and I can already hear, very faint and very patient, and getting closer, footsteps coming up the stairs behind me.